Hello team, so welcome back to the channel. So first of all, huge thanks to you guys for giving an awesome response to the day 0 video, and today we'll be getting started with day 1 video. In day 1 video, we'll be understanding the complete workflow from scratch, like how exactly the project get onboarded inside the company, how developers are going to get started with it. Then we are going to understand the architecture, we are going to understand the workflow from developer point of view, we are going to understand the project structure, what are the components inside the project, and then we are going to build the project locally to understand how exactly a developer is going to run the project before it pushes code to GitHub. Right, all these things we are going to cover today. Just one request to everyone: make sure that you are implementing the project today itself, so that you are learning with the same pace as me. Okay, this will be really useful. Also team, make sure to give this video a like, so that as soon as it reaches 500 likes, immediately day 2 video will be uploaded. Right, so yeah, with that being said, let's get started. So team, before we get started, just to let you know, batch 10 of DevSecOps and Cloud DevOps is available for enrollment. You can check out all the details from the description below. Also team, it has it will be giving you immediate access to 120 plus hours of content, 40 plus projects, and there is a dedicated private Discord server for doubt support. So you can check it out, and all the details will be in the description. Now we can get started with the today's video. So Tim, let me tell you like how exactly a projects will be onboarded. So one of the main things that a company has to do with respect to client, in addition to the dedicated meetings, in order to get the project, is that company has to showcase the resources. Here by resources I basically mean the people who are going to be working on the project. For example, in my second company, one day an HR of our own company asked me to share a resume of 1 page. Okay, so I shared it, and initially I thought that I might be getting transferred to some other project, but then I asked the HR. Then she told me that this resume is required in order to showcase the resource available for the upcoming project. So basically company has to showcase that, okay, we have multiple resources available, we have multiple architect available, we have 10 developers available, we have these DevOps engineers available, testers available, they have these kind of certifications. All these things have to be shown to client in order to convince him, right? So what exactly happens, like a proper discussion happens with respect to the project, plus resources availability has to be disclosed. Okay, we have enough resources that can manage your project. So once the client is convinced, then that project can be onboarded, right? Once that is done, then like internal meeting will be happening in order to discuss about the project, right? See, initial discussion happens about the project, like what are the visions of the project, what exactly we are trying to do. All those things will be informed by the client. Later on becomes the technical discussion, right, where internal team like the architects and developers, DevOps engineers all connect to a meeting and discuss what kind of tech stack we have to use for this project, right? So there, after proper discussion, it could be decided, okay, we have to use a specific tech stack which could be the best option. How do they decide? So they have to consider the pros and cons, right? Then only they will decide what we have to use for backend, what we have to use for front end, and what kind of database we have to use. All the things will be decided. Once this is decided, then comes the important task for developer. Because when we talk about creating the project, a source code, that is going to be done by developer, right? There also we can have two scenarios. In one scenario, there we can say that, okay, we have just one developer who is going to be working on the project. Second scenario could be there where we are having multiple developers, let's say 10 developers. In both scenarios, how things are going to get started, let me explain you in detail. So team, let us understand both the scenarios where we have just one developer, and second, we have more than one developers. Now, if we have just one developer who is supposed to develop the whole application, what it's going to do, he's going to get started by developing the application locally. That means he's going to write the source code locally in his personal laptop or whatever office laptop. Once he has developed the code enough to run, then he's going to push the code on GitHub repository. While when we talk about 10 developers, in this scenarios, what is going to happen? Each of the developer is going to be working on specific feature or specific section of the code, right? So in this section, what we have to do, developers, they are going to generate a template. Code template will be generated. It will be kept on GitHub repo, right? Once it is kept on GitHub repo, then what is going to happen? Each developer is going to create a local copy of the repository in their machine, right? And then they can develop the code from there. In detail, we'll come to this in detail in the coming episode. But for now, just understand each developer is going to create a local copy of the template that is going to be kept in GitHub repository, and they are going to develop a specific feature with respect to that. For that also, they are going to be first testing it locally, means they are going to run the whatever code they have developed in their local machine, and then they are going to be pushing to GitHub repository. Okay, that means now here in both cases at the end we discussed the concept of local run. What exactly does it mean? Basically it means running the project inside your personal laptop or office laptop, wherever you are working, okay, before we push the code to GitHub repository. Okay, that we have to do. So this is the hands-on demo part we are going to do today, but before that we have to understand the architecture of the project. We'll come to that in a bit, right? So this is how like developers is going to get started. Now, understanding the project structure, what project we are going to be implementing today. So team, this is the application that we are going to be building it today. This is a 3-tier application having front end, back end, and a database available in this application. Okay, so we are going to understand first the architecture of it. And one more thing team, I created this application from scratch, so it's not some application that I'm picking up from GitHub, it's created from scratch. Okay, so now let us understand the tech stack that we will be using in this project. So team, now let us understand about the tech stack and a little bit about the project architecture. So first of all, there will be this will be a 3-tier project where we'll be having the front end, which will be this will be responsible for presentation layer. Then we'll be having the back end responsible for the business logic, and then we'll be having a database, right? Now talking about tech stack, what tech stack we'll be using. So first of all, talking about front end. Okay, so in front end, first of all, the language in which all the code will be written is going to be JavaScript. The library that we are going to be using is going to be React.js. Now understand, React.js is not a language, it's a library. We are going to be using, we are going to be calling this library to be utilized within the project front end part. Okay, talking about the runtime environment. So the runtime environment for the front end part of the code will be browser, means that's where the code will be executed. Okay, so for us to view the UI and everything, so runtime environment for the front end will be browser. Coming to backend. In backend again, code will be written in JavaScript. Here we are going to be using a framework. Which framework we are using? We are using Express.js. Again, it's not a language, it's a framework. Okay. Third thing that we are going to be using in backend is going to be Node.js. Now what is this? This is basically a runtime environment. Now previously I told that for front end the runtime environment is browser, that's where code will be executed, while for backend runtime environment is Node.js. What exactly is Node.js? What exactly do we mean by runtime environment? So Node.js will be making sure that the code of backend will be executed server side. It is getting executed on the server side. That means it won't be getting executed or visible over the browser. And why we need to make sure that? Because backend will be directly connected to the database, and obviously you can understand that the component that is connecting to database, we cannot expose it directly over browser. That is another reason why we are not directly connecting from front end to database, because if you are connecting directly from front end to database, it will be easily like hacked because it is exposed over the browser, right? And that is the one of the main reason we are keeping this backend in between, so that communication to database can be done and details can be fetched, or like we can perform the CRUD operations via backend API. Okay, and database we are using MySQL. So I hope this is clear. And see, because long ago, when I was very fresh, when I was fresher, I used to get confused about React.js, Express.js, all those things. Okay, So again, note that this is what? This is library. What exactly is library? So we are going to be calling the library. Let me see. We are going to call, means the code is going to call. Code will call the library to be utilized. Okay. While Express.js, it's a framework. And here, framework is going to call the code. It's like inversion, you can say. Okay. So just understand this very clearly. Node.js, it's what? It's a runtime environment. It makes sure that our code is running on server side or backend side basically. While runtime environment for front end is what? It's browser. Everything will be written in JavaScript language, but we are using different libraries, different frameworks for front end and back end, right? Now, so now we understood the architecture, like what tech stack we'll be using, and this will be the architecture basically. If in simple words, if I show you, we have front end, then between we'll be having the backend API, then we'll be having the database. Okay. As I told you already, why we are having backend API, so that front end can communicate with database indirectly via backend API. Why we are not why we are not connecting front end directly to database? Because front end is exposed over browser, and if we are directly connecting front end to database, then there might be a security risk. Easily database can be accessed by third-party people or who want to hack our project. Okay, this is how our tech stack will be going. Now, just to show you project before we get started with the hands-on part, if I show you, this is the project that we are going to be implementing today. Local run, again, remember local run we are going to do. This is the project that I created from scratch a few days ago. Okay, it's a basic CRUD based operation kind of project. CRUD. I have always suggested to everyone, when you are getting started with building projects or doing execution, first kind of project, always go with CRUD, because it has these four kind of like very basic operations: CRUD, create, read, update, and delete. Because these four operations are the base of any kind of project. So always you should get started with this kind of project. Okay. So this is the project that we are going to be running today, and I'm going to be showing you from scratch. Right. So now we understood the tech stack, what things we will be using. So team, now we are going to get started by hands-on with respect to project. So first thing we are going to do is create a virtual machine. But before that, one more thing team, make sure that on your security group, you have opened port 3000 and 5000, because these two ports we are going to be utilizing within the project. Rest, these are the ports that I generally keep open. So you can take a screenshot and make sure that you are opening the same. Okay. Now let us create our virtual machine. So here I'm going to name this virtual machine as project server. I'm creating Ubuntu based machine. Version is going to be 24.04 LTS. So it's kind of stable with long-term support. And instance type, we are going to be creating T2 medium, which should be more than enough. Keep here we can select. If not, you can click on here, provide a name, make sure keep here type is RSA, and create the PEM file. Once you create it, it will be downloaded on your local machine, which can be utilized for accessing the virtual machine, right? Next thing, we will select the security group, which is going to be this. Note that I'm using the default VPC that is available. Storage, I'm going to go with 25, which is more than enough for us to run the project locally. Now we are going to launch the instance. Let's wait for this to come online. Okay. Now we can copy the public IP, go to MobaXterm, click on session, click on SSH, provide the IP, specify username. In our case, it's going to be Ubuntu, and here advanced SSH. So we can select the key that is present on our local machine, and this is the same key with which we have created the machine, right? We can name this server also. I'm going to name this as project server. We can customize the color if you want. We can just go with this, and now yes. So now you can see machine has been connected, right? First thing that you are supposed to do is run the command sudo apt update. Okay, so let's wait for this to complete. Meanwhile, let me show you the project. So I have created this repository where we have two main things: API and client folder. Now client is basically like the front end, API is going to be the back end. Okay, if I go inside the client folder, here we have the, whatever files are required, out of which two files which are very important for us as a DevOps engineer are package.json and package-log.json. So let me quickly explain these two files as well, so you understand what is their significance. First file, we have package.json. Now this is the file which contains the information about what dependencies we are using. Secondly, it also contains the commands that are going to be utilized for building the project, for running test cases, for starting the project and running it in dev server. Okay, so all these are with respect, like you can add more commands, but yeah, these will be added in package.json. So as a DevOps engineer, if you want to know like what command I have to run in order to build the application or start the application, you can get it inside package.json. But more importantly, it's specifically used for dependencies, which like what will be the dependencies that we are going to be using within the project that are going to be defined inside it. Second file we have package-log.json. Now looks like similar, but it's not similar. So let us understand what exactly is this file. So basically, whatever specific version of dependencies that we are going to be using within the project, those versions will be defined here. Plus, if I install any new dependency, for example, I run the command like this, npm install, let's say bcrypt. So if I'm installing a package or installing library or a dependency, so whatever specific version that is getting installed, it will be added here. Okay, so it is basically this file is going to contain information about the versions of the dependencies that we are going to be using, right? This is one thing. Talking about next, we have src folder, which is the actual folder inside the complete source code will be present, right? In addition to that, in here you'll be able to see many files. Out of that, this file that you see app.js, this is the entry point for the application. That means application is going to get started from here, so remember that. And sometimes this file could also be named as server.js, but yeah, as you can see here we have app.js. Then we have pages folder. Inside this, whatever like UI based pages we have, that will be written here. Okay, now coming to backend part. So here we have so many also files, and here another file app.js. As I told, this is going to be entry point. If you scroll down, you'll be able to find the information about the port on which the application will be running. You can see here, right? So this is the entry point. As a DevOps engineer, this is the file that we should be aware about. So if like some issue happens, we can check this file mostly. Okay, coming to next thing, which is very important for us, is going to be this folder models. Inside this, you can see a file present db.js. If I open this, you can understand from here itself, it's a file that basically provides information about how we are connecting to database. Okay, here you can see we have mentioned few things, the host, like host, username, password, and the database name, right? These are mentioned, and from where we are using this. So for now I have not hard coded this, so I'm using an environment file. You can see this is the environment file whose values we have given. Now one thing you should know, for now I have pushed the environment file on the GitHub repository, but generally it should not be pushed. Okay, but again, as I say, we are doing local run. This is the first level of testing with the application that we have to do, basically to test if the application is running fine or not. Okay, but generally we should not be putting environment file inside GitHub repository. It should be clear. Okay, now so here we have ran the command for updating the packages. Next thing we have to do, install few things. What things we have to install? First thing that I'm going to be installing is going to be Node.js, okay, and npm. So team, as I said, this is going to be a local run, right? In local run, we are not like automating many things. For example, the setting up of database, we are going to be doing manually. The creation, setting up of like users inside database, that also we are going to be setting up manually, right? As I said, the whole point of doing local run of the application is to test if the application is working fine or not. That is the first level of test run that developers are going to do, right, in local machine. So we are going to do the same. coming back here, so here as I said, we are going to install Node.js npm. So for that you can go on browser, and here you can simply search as, let's say we will type download Node.js like that, and here you can select the version. So I'm going to go with 22 version LTS. Here we can select Linux machine, here we can select NVM, and then we can go with it. So first command, this is the first command that we can execute. Let's wait for it. Now at the end you can see we have to execute this command. Okay, in order to, either we can close and reopen the terminal, or we can run the below command to use it now. So we will execute this command. This is done. Next set of command we have to execute this one. We will copy this and execute that as well. Final command we have nvm install 22, which is going to install the package. So let's wait for this. This is done. So first I'm going to run npm. You can see npm is installed. Then I can run node-v, and we can see node npm, both of them are installed now. Okay. Next thing what we have to do, we have to clone our project here and then get started working with it. Okay. So let us do that as well. So team, this is the project that we are going to be using throughout this whole series. So make sure to star it as well as bookmark it so that you don't forget about it. Now, by default, only main branch is here. So what we are going to do now, we are going to create one branch name as dev. And we are going to be working dev because we are doing like development, right? So we have to do we have to use the code that we have in dev. So I'm going to run the command like this, copy the repository URL, and here we can run git clone repo URL. That is done. We will go inside the directory, and now here I'm going to run the command as git checkout dev, so that it can be switched immediately to dev branch. So now we have the code that is of dev branch, right? And we have both the folders API and client. Now few things we have to modify. As I told you, since this is a test run, so here in order to provide certain details, we are going to be using env files, environment files. For example, the username and database name, those username password of database, those things we are going to provide via this one. Obviously, when we deploy the application inside Kubernetes cluster, we don't use environment directly, so that details are not exposed. We use vault server like that, vault server, 𝗭𝗓 or vault server to store the those credentials. But here for local run of the project, where we just have to test if the project code is working fine or not, we could store the information in environment file. Okay. Now coming back here, so here what we have installed as of now, we have installed Node.js npm, we have installed, and we have the repository. Next thing what we have to do, we have to set up a database. That means we have to install MySQL. Okay, so let us install that as well. So team, we have to set up database. For that I have written the command. Let me explain you the important command. First we have the command to install the MySQL server, which we can install. Second command is the command that is going to set up the password for our root user. Also you can note here that root at the rate localhost. That means we are trying to set up the password for user root for the request that is going to be coming from the localhost. In our case, localhost is the machine where we are going to execute the commands, right? One more thing here, you'll be able to see we have written that with MySQL native password, because we want to make sure that authentication is happening via password instead of any auth socket or SHA hashed password. So for that purpose, we are adding this command also, just to use the native password. Okay, so let us copy this and execute it here. This is going to install MySQL on our machine. Also, I'm going to show you how you can access the MySQL server, because as a DevOps engineer, obviously we might not remember each and every command to set up the tables, but at least we should know basic commands to see the tables, see databases, and connect to our database, right? So let's wait for it. Okay, this is done. So once MySQL is installed, you can execute the command sudo mysql. Now here you can see we are trying to access MySQL terminal, but here we are not providing any kind of password, because this command you can run directly for the first time in order to set up the password and access the MySQL terminal. So we can click enter, and you can see it has opened the terminal for us. Now what we have to do, now we are going to set up the password for our root user. So for that you can execute this command. First, alter user command is going to set up the password for root user, for local host, and the password you can set up anything that you want. I'm just going with Aditya. Second, we have flush privileges. It basically means that we are going, it's going to perform reload kind of thing, so that whatever changes we have done, they are applied. So I'm going to copy all these three. And also remember team, if you have multiple commands, so you can simply put this semicolon. That will make the MySQL understand that these are separate commands. Okay, so I'll copy this and we can execute them directly here. Now as soon as last command executed exit, we came out of MySQL server. Now what we are going to do, we are going to log in again in order to set up the database and tables, but this time we are going to be using password, right? So I'm going to run the command as sudo mysql -u for user. We are going to be using username as root and -p for password. Now password I am not providing here. Click enter and it is asking for provide the password. So we have already set up the password as Aditya. So we can put that here and click enter. Now just remember that when you type the password, it won't be visible, but just remember, yeah, it is getting typed. And now we are logged in. Next step, what we have to do, we have to set up the database name, right? Which is going to be this one. And also these details that are you seeing here, the database name, I have already mentioned this in our source code. That's why I need to create with the same name. Okay. So you can simply copy all these commands till here, which is going to set up the database and respective tables as well. So we will copy that and we will execute all of them directly here. And yeah, so no error came. That means everything is success. So our database and table has been created. So now what we can do, we can exit from MySQL terminal. This is also done, right? So for now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to open two terminals, for one for the API like backend, one for the front end. Okay, so I'll just double click on it. So let us say that this will be our backend. So I will go inside the API directory. API, as you remember, that will be the backend directory. And second terminal that I have opened, let's make it as the front end. So we will go inside the client folder. Okay. Now here, first of all, let us see what we have inside our .env file. So I'll run cat.env. Here we have written these things, right? First of all, make sure that whatever password that you are setting up for your MySQL, same thing you have to use here. 𝗕𝗵𝗃𝗢 secret, here you can use anything you want. I have just written 𝗕𝗵𝗃𝗢𝗃 super secret key, like that. You can choose anything. For front end, there also will be having an environment file. If I show you the value of it, this. Now, React App API. So front end will be needing in order to it will be requiring to connect to backend API. So we have to provide URL. Now here you can understand that this value, I don't want it to hard code directly within the project. That's why I'm using environment variable, which why I'm using is this, because when it comes for us to deploy the application via like a Docker container or Kubernetes pods, this environment variable can be easily utilized. Just to show you like where exactly that is being utilized, if I show you src folder cat xuse. So this is a file where we are mentioned the information about the like where exactly it has to connect to backend API. So here you can see I'm using process.env.this, right? So this is what I have added, and its value I'm going to be passing through environment variable. Again, I'm saying team here it's like hard coding, right? Because we are doing testing, running the application in local, right? Now, so what changes we have to do here, since this value that you just saw env, this refers to my previous version of machine where I used it. Now I have to update it with the public IP of the latest machine that we are on, right? So I'm going to be modifying it env, and here we can run it. We can update this, save this. This is done. Also team, here if I go inside the src folder cat, we have app.js. Okay, as I told you, this is the entry point of the application. This is basically this is the file from where application is getting started. So just remember that. Okay. So this is done, and now we can start the application. So first I'll go to this directory where we have the backend. So first I'm going to install the dependencies of the backend. Remember the team, like whatever dependencies are mentioned inside package.json, these dependencies, we have to install it, right? In addition to that, there will be one more section inside package.json scripts, which basically have the command that we need to execute in order to start it. So here, first of all, you can see for starting the backend, we have the command node uh, this app.js. But you can type this, or you can directly type npm start. Start refers to this command. Okay, so both the commands will work. So first we have to install dependencies. For that, you can type npm install, and whatever dependencies are mentioned in package.json, that will be downloaded and kept in a folder known as node modules folder. Okay, if I show you ls, you can see a new folder got created, node module. So this will be containing the whatever dependency library, whatever we download, it will be kept here, right? And now I can run npm start as per the command written inside the package.json, which is going to start the backend. And you can see it says MySQL connected, right? That means we have set up MySQL also correctly and our machine also. So this is fine. And also remember that basically while using this project, I created admin user by default, whose email is this and password is this. Coming here. So here also we are going to install the dependencies that we have. We will run npm install, and it's going to check the package.json file, install all the dependencies that are mentioned there. So we will run it, and let's wait for this to complete. It has a lot of dependencies, and so as of now we did not get any errors, so it's fine. Okay, this is done. So we have downloaded the dependencies, right? Next thing what we can do, we can actually run the test cases. So basically we have kept certain test cases also team. Before that, you can see here also we got created node modules folder, the folder that is going to contain the dependencies, right? If I show you the test files, I wrote a test case, 20 test cases that are going to pass no matter what. So how to execute the test cases? For that, we will come to root directory here, and I can run the command npm test. You can see total test cases were 20, all of them have been passed. Okay. Now here, if you see this section, this is the actual command that got executed to start executing the test cases. But where exactly this is mentioned? If I show you the package.json, as I told you, that's where it is mentioned, package.json. You can see here this section, scripts, right? Here we have the specific section for executing test cases. Now you might be thinking, ki Aditya, what exactly are the commands that are mentioned here? Okay, so let me explain you these as well. So team, let us understand what exactly are mentioned here. First, we have start. Now, when you want to start the application in development environment, basically what we are trying to do, like in running in local or running in the lower environment, so then you can use npm start. What exactly is this? React script is basically a package that gets set up when you when you set up the front end. So this is the package that is going to start the machine, or like build the front end part. Then we have build. Basically, when you want to deploy your application inside Kubernetes as like in production environment, then you have to use the npm run build, which is going to set up a new package with like the static files that we can use. Then we have tests again, like we can run the uh, inside test, we can execute the unit test cases. Then we have eject, where we are using eject. So what exactly it's going to do? It's going to remove all the hidden configurations, and it's going to give you complete control over the front end. Okay, so that's what it's going to do. Now we have already ran the test cases, we have installed dependencies, so now we can start the application by running npm start, and let's see how it goes. See, backend is already running. You can see here MySQL connected server running on this 5000. We have just started front end. So front end also started, and we can access the front end by getting the public IP. And by default, front end will be running on port 3000. So we can try to access on that 3000. We are able to access, right? So let us do one thing. Let us register with normal users, I'm going to provide details like Aditya, and here I can go with 𝗵𝗃𝗍𝗂@gmail.com. Password I can set up to 12345. Register. So we have registered, and let us log in with the same thing. I can provide this and password. Login. So we are logged in. And you can see here ki by default one admin user is present. That's what I have done. So that by default there will be two kind of users, a viewer and the admin. So viewer cannot perform anything other than adding users. For example, we have logged in with Aditya user, which is having the role of viewer. So we can add users, like let's say I provide the name as Jay, and we can provide email and password. Let me set up some small password. Okay, we can add it, right? New user got added. But we cannot modify anything, like we cannot edit it or we cannot delete it. If you want to do that, you can click on logout. Then you have to log in with these details, adminexample.com, which is already present here. You can see details here. Password is admin123. So I can run 123, click on login, and we are logged in with admin. Now you can see we do have option to edit or delete. For example, we can delete this user, right? We can edit this user. Here you can like update it, and you can add some details, right? So that is done. So this is the project I have added, and few small things you can see, small bubbles are also going, that also added. And here you can get the information about the project. This is just going down, and here we have the links, right? So this is how we can run the project in local to test if it is working or not, right? What I would recommend you can get all the code here, and in addition these files, this also will be added as a doc here itself. So make sure to implement this project, watch the whole video, understand it, and then implement the project. Okay, so yeah guys, I hope this was useful for you. Also guys, make sure to give at least 500 likes so I can immediately upload the next video, right? So yeah, thanks for watching guys, and have a nice day.